Welcome, it is Mitch. I am on YouTube. If you haven't already, please click subscribe. Trying to build this channel from the ground up. Appreciate all the support as always. Packers on the road, week 3 at the Tennessee Titans. Titans are 0-2 losses to Chicago and to the New York Jets. This is final thoughts as we get prepared for Sunday's noon kickoff on, is it on Fox again, I think, between the Packers and the Titans. Let's jump right into some of the keys. This has been brought up regardless of who the opponent was going to be this week for Green Bay. Now, it does certainly tie into it as well, but it's been brought up in Packer land a lot. The lack of sacks, the lack of quarterback pressures the first 2 weeks that Jeff Hafley's defense has gotten on the opposing quarterbacks, being Jalen Hurts in week 1, and of course in week 2 when the Packers faced Indianapolis and Anthony Richardson. I'll start by saying this. Jeff Hafley's defense has done a lot of good in the first 2 weeks, primarily forcing turnovers in both games against the Eagles and the Colts. But a lot of people are frustrated. They look at the edge like, we got Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Kingsley Enagbari, Lucas Van Ness, Kenny Clark in the middle. Devontae Wyatt had a sack last week. You have Slayton in the middle as well. Brooks is there. How are they not getting pressure on the opposing quarterback? I will say this, and let me preface by noting, I am not saying this was the right method. I'm not saying it was the wrong method. I'm saying if you go back and you watch those games against the Eagles and the Colts, it appeared that part of the blueprint for Hafley's defense the first 2 weeks was to contain and try to keep Hurts in the pocket and not let him beat you with his legs. And then the same thing with Anthony Richardson in the Indianapolis Colts. Again, I'm not saying that was the right choice. I'm not saying it was the wrong choice. I'm saying I think a huge contributor to Green Bay not really getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback, not piling up some sack numbers like we may have expected because of the names they have on that defensive front, to me is in large part due to the game plan that they have unraveled these first 2 weeks, which is let's not let Hurts run wild. Let's not let Anthony Richardson run wild. Two very mobile and true dual threat quarterbacks. And to their credit, Hurts did not beat them with their legs. 13 rushes, 33 yards against Green Bay. I know Philadelphia lost to Atlanta week 2, primetime standalone game Monday Night Football, but did you see Hurts? He was running wild. He had 13 rushes for 33 yards against Green Bay in week 1. Against Atlanta, 13 rushes for Jalen Hurts, but he turned it into 83 yards against Atlanta. I know there's other problems. Week 1, you can say, well, they took away Hurts' ability to run the ball, but Saquon ran crazy. The passing game hit some deep shots on Green Bay. I get that. Completely understand it. Same thing with Anthony Richardson. He didn't do anything in the ground game. He had 3 carries, I think, for 15 yards against Green Bay. He led Indianapolis in rushing week 1 against the Houston Texans. So I think a big byproduct of why there haven't been quarterback pressures, why there haven't been sacks these first 2 weeks for Green Bay is because of who they have played and how they thought they should attack those opposing quarterbacks. And it was much more of a let's contain things instead of cutting our defensive ends especially loose and trying to get him after the quarterback. I think that changes in week 3. Will Levis, he's a dual threat. Not to the extent, though, that Jalen Hurts and Anthony Richardson are. Will Levis, you are not nearly as scared if you're the Packers or any other opposing defense facing the Tennessee Titans this year. You're not near as worried about Will Levis beating you with his legs. He's just not on that same tier that a Jalen Hurts is on when you talk about running mobile quarterbacks that are willing to try to beat you running the ball at the quarterback position. So I think this is a big opportunity for Green Bay's front to sort of silence that. I think I saw even in one of my comments, Mark had mentioned the lack of the pass rushers getting home for Green Bay, and it's true. They just haven't the first 2 weeks, but I think it was much more matchup-oriented as to why that was the case. And it's leading to Green Bay being 30th in sack percentage through 2 games and very low on the totem pole when it comes to quarterback pressures as well. Now, reason number 1 why I think they'll cut it loose this week is the opposing quarterback, Will Levis. Like I said, mobile, not to the degree that Richardson and Hurts are. Secondarily, Look at the offensive line for the Tennessee Titans. It has been an absolute disaster for them through 2 weeks. Anytime Will Levis is in a drop-back situation, hasn't been too comfortable for QB1 for Tennessee. Let's start on the right side of the line, just because that's where it's most glaring, and that's where we will likely see Rashawn Gary much of the afternoon. Right tackle Nicholas Petit-Frere for Tennessee has allowed 11 quarterback pressures in 2 games. He's allowed 11 quarterback pressures in 2 games. Out of 61 qualified tackles through 2 weeks, that ranks dead last, 61st. Nicholas Petit-Frere has allowed the most quarterback pressures of any offensive tackle in the NFL so far this season. Again, if you're a Titans fan and you want to go glass half full, you'll say, hey, it's a small sample size, they'll get it figured out. Not sure if that's the case. You get Rashawn Gary licking his chops, seeing that. You get Jeff Hafley seeing those numbers. Green Bay is going to want to attack. They're going to want to cut loose their defensive ends and try to attack Will Levis early and often on Sunday. Now, it's not just Petit-Frere. This is almost across the board on that offensive line outside of the center spot for Tennessee. If you're looking and you're like, oh, well, the right tackle, that's not good. 11 quarterback pressures in 2 games. Look at right guard. Dylan Radins has allowed 6 quarterback pressures. That's 54th out of 60 for guards in the NFL. And you're like, all right, well, what about the left guard? Peter Skoronski has allowed 7. That's 1 more than the right guard. That's 57th out of 60th. And then if you just want to throw in for good measure, the left tackle on the opposite side of that line from Petit-Frere, J.C. Latham has allowed 6 quarterback pressures as well for a cherry on top, 47th out of 61st. Point being, Tennessee has not done good in pass protection. Not only have they not done good, it's been pitiful how they've tried to hold things up and give Will Levis a clean pocket. He has had anything from a clean pocket these first 2 weeks. Opponent matters. Chicago's defense, up front spearheaded by Montez Sweat, very versatile. They're good at getting after the quarterback. The Jets, they're decent at getting after the quarterback as well. So opponent matters, but if you're Green Bay and you've played 2 really, really mobile quarterbacks the first 2 weeks, and you've more gone to a contain method of trying to keep them in the pocket and not let them bust outside of it. Now you're getting a matchup against Tennessee where Levis isn't as mobile as Jalen Hurts, and this offensive line has proven through 2 games they cannot hold up in pass protection. So, Packer fans out there, I hear you. I'm in your shoes. I want to see Rashawn Gary get a sack and a half, maybe 2 this week. I want to see Preston Smith get in there and maybe share a sack with Lucas Van Ness. I want to see Kingsley Enagbari burst off the edge. I want to see Kenny Clark come up the middle and provide some quarterback pressures. This feels like the perfect storm for Green Bay to really cause some havoc and cause some chaos up front because they're hearing the noise. They haven't done it much the first 2 weeks. Now they're facing an offensive line that has been just dreadful in that department. And so we'll see how that pans out for Green Bay. And so I see Rashawn Gary. I see Preston Smith. I see LVN. I see Enagbari. They should feast on Sunday because their priority is not going to be, let's worry about Will Levis's legs. We don't want him beating us with his legs. You don't want any quarterback beating you with their legs. But it's less of a worry with Levis compared to what it was with Hurts and Richardson. Some big, big numbers. 11 quarterback pressures in 2 games that your right tackle's allowed. 61 out of 61 for qualified offensive tackles. Someone should be showing Rashawn Gary that on a piece of paper and say, this is your week. Make a stamp. Make a mark early in this season. Let's go. This defense has done a lot of good things the first couple of weeks. Pressuring the quarterback has not been one. Now you guys are going to get cut loose. Get downhill, get upfield, however you want to phrase it. I think it's a big, big key in this one for Green Bay. Mitch, I am on YouTube. Subscribe if you haven't already. Appreciate all the support. Packers Titans week 3 in Nashville. Green Bay trying to move to 2-1 on the season. Speaking of Will Levis, let's stick to that side of the ball. Some of you might be thinking, hey, he's burying the lead. Does this dude know that Jordan Love just practiced on Wednesday? Yes, I know Jordan Love was a limited participant at practice. I wanted to start on the other side of the ball. Sticking that focus with Will Levis. Kind of final thoughts for this game, Packers-Titans. I watched their full week 1 game against Chicago, and I watched their second half against the New York Jets, and then I saw little blips from the first half against New York in week 2. Will Levis seems to have an issue that's good for the opposing team, bad if you're a fan of the Tennessee Titans. He seems to have at least 1 play a week where you truly sit back and afterwards think, what the hell is he thinking? Not what is he doing, That ties in with it. But more so, what's going through his mind where he thinks that was the right choice, that was the right decision to make? Week 1, he had a pick 6 against Chicago that was just numbing to the mind, made no sense. There was a viral meme. He was like on the ground or like on his knees on the field doing this while the Bears cornerback, led by a convoy of Chicago defenders, being escorted to the end zone the other way for a pick 6. And it was just a horrible decision by Will Levis in a game where Chicago really had no right winning it. Tennessee was up 17-0. Levis throws that pick 6. Chicago gets a blocked punt that they take back for a touchdown, and it turned the entire momentum. It shifted all the leverage to the Bears, and the Bears won 24-17. And you're thinking, man, that's just a dumb play, but hey, he's a young quarterback. Cut him some slack. Week 2 against the Jets. 7-0 Tennessee's up. Against the Jets offense that really struggled against San Francisco week 1 to put points up on the board, and up to that stage against Tennessee, it was 7 rip out of the gate. Titans were up. Jets were struggling again offensively. Tennessee's in the red zone. I think they were slightly inside the 15-yard line. 3rd down and goal. Again, Tennessee up 7-0. Will Levis, pocket collapses. He tries to step up. He almost like shovels or flips the ball on a lateral to his running back, who was a check down option. It was a pass play. And he almost like flips it while he's sprawling out and falling down to the turf. And it's a backwards lateral. Chaos ensues. The Jets dive on it. And instead of just eating it, chip shot field goal, you go up 10-0. It's still 7-0, and the Jets get some momentum after forcing a turnover. Another play where you're like, what the hell is this dude thinking? And if you think that I'm in the minority about that thought process, Tennessee's head coach, when Will Levis was walking off the field, looked at him and said, what the f are you doing after that play? Said in his post-game press conference, yeah, that's what I said. Didn't understand what he was trying to do out there on that play. And so this has been a Packers defense under Jeff Hafley. 2 games only, but very opportunistic, somewhat aggressive on that back end, forcing turnovers left and right. Will Levis, so far this year, has shown he'll give you one. He'll at least give you one. And so I think turnover battle, trying to win that. I don't care if it's Malik Willis under center, Jordan Love under center. Winning the turnover battle will go a long way. This defense for Green Bay, just like the defensive front, should be licking their chops to get some pressure on this offensive line that's been putrid for Tennessee. On the back end, those quarterback pressures can rush the process for Levis. Sit back, maybe pick it apart if you're the secondary of Green Bay. Try to force some turnovers in this one. I think it'll happen. Finally, too, I mentioned it. Jordan Love practiced Wednesday. Said to reporters afterwards he's going to give himself the week. Would like to play Sunday against the Titans. We'll see how that goes. Has to get cleared. The one big thing Matt LaFleur has said since the injury week 1, Jordan has to be able to protect himself. That's the big line that he's been using. Jordan's got to be able to protect himself. He's got to get cleared by the doctors. That's a no-brainer. But even if he's cleared by doctors, LaFleur wants him to mentally be there. Mentally know, like, okay, I can take care of myself, protect myself out here on the field. I'm good to go. There were clips of him at practice kind of jogging around, going through drills. Looked pretty comfortable. He had a sleeve on the leg. Couldn't tell if there was like a small brace underneath it. I'm not sure. It kind of looked like there was something, but who knows? But Love said to reporters afterwards he's going to give himself the week. He wants to play Sunday against Tennessee. Part of me wanted to see, obviously you want Jordan Love out there. That's your QB1. That's why you forked over the money in the offseason. There was a little sliver of me, though, that was like, man, Malik Willis revenge game would be pretty sick to see against the team that traded him to Green Bay just a few weeks ago. But if it is Jordan Love, the Packers aren't going to clear him unless it's a full go. So if Jordan Love's out there, I'm going to assume the Packers and LaFleur have everything at their disposal to use offensively, that he's not going to be limited in any capacity. Now, you're not going to have them out there running read options and pulling it and keeping it and running it around the end for 20 yards. You would think they'd be smart about how they use Jordan Love in his first game back from an MCL sprain. But if he's cleared, I'm assuming it's a full go and you have everything that you can pull out of the pockets for Matt LaFleur to use and try to rack up some points against this Tennessee defense that's been pretty stingy through 2 weeks against Chicago and New York. If it is Malik Willis, flip side of the coin, I don't even want to say I don't think. I know that same script isn't going to work against Tennessee. I don't know how Indianapolis didn't just stack the box. Some of it might have been personnel. You know, Green Bay ran it early. They ran it often against Tennessee. But going back and watching that game, they did so with a lot of 3 wide receiver sets on the field, which if you're Indianapolis, it's pick your poison. It's like, well, we have to, we can't go with a base defense and stack up the line. They've got 3 wide receivers out here, even though Jaden Reed was lined up in the backfield on some of those, especially in that first quarter against Indianapolis. I still would have gone with the method of, okay, they're going 3 wide receivers. We're still going to bring it and try to, if you're going to go 3 wide receivers, throw it anyways. And we'll bite the bullet that way. Indianapolis didn't really do that in the first half. They made some adjustments in the second half. I don't think that same script's going to work if it's Malik Willis under center for Green Bay. Tennessee's not going to let you gash them like Indianapolis did. Indianapolis got throttled on the ground game week 1 against Houston, and then it was the same thing against the Packers, but the Packers were in a different spot where you've got QB2 going, so if you're the Colts going into that matchup, I was so taken aback and just startled that Indianapolis, again, it wasn't 2-3 yard runs for the Packers a pop. They were ripping off one big chunk play after another. They had 9 plays of 10-plus yards in that first half, and most of them came via the ground game against Indianapolis just a week ago. I don't think that same blueprint will work this time against Tennessee. If it is Malik Willis, they will stack the box. They're not going to let the Packers beat them how they beat Indianapolis. They have the tape now. Now, Matt LaFleur is crafty. He's creative. He'll come up with other ways to try to beat Indianapolis while also incorporating a heavy dosage of the run game if it is Willis under center. But that same script, it won't work. Teams adjust, players adjust, coaches adjust, the league adjust. And that's what will happen this time around if it's Malik Willis under center. So if it is him, I would expect more than 14 pass attempts. Game flow and how things come to be throughout a contest also dictate that. Like if Green Bay falls behind the 8 ball by 2 possessions early, they're probably going to be throwing more naturally. But if you're up 2 scores, you can keep leaning on the run, right? So game flow dictates a lot of how things will turn out and sort of manifest. But that same plan will not work. It just won't work against Tennessee. They're not going to let Green Bay do the same things that they did against Indianapolis to be successful on Sunday. But Jordan Love practiced Wednesday, wants to be out there. We'll see how things go the rest of the week. Regardless, if it is Willis or Love, I think it's a very, very winnable game. It's a Tennessee team back against the walls. You can zoom things out and say you get 17 cracks. You get 17 tries at this. 0-2's not where you want to be, and that's where the Titans are. But there's time to adjust. There's time to figure it out. But this is going to be a desperate, hungry Titans team. In the NFL, when you do only have 17 goes at this in a regular season, 1-2 is a hell of a lot better than 0-3. 0-3, you're starting to think doomsday. 0-3, you're thinking this is a really big hole to try to dig out of when we're in a division with the Houston Texans, right? And so 1-2 is a lot different. So you're going to get, I would assume you're going to get Tennessee's best punch on Sunday because they want to get to 1-2, climb back towards 500 instead of continuing to sink into the cellar. And I don't think it's a bad Tennessee team. 2 24-17 losses. I think those were both final scores. 24-17 against Chicago, 24-17 against the Jets. And they were up 17 rip against Chicago. And they led early on against the Jets. And they had chances against the Jets late. It's not an 0-2 team that I look at, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a layup, even if it's Willis for the Packers. If it's Willis, it's going to be a grinded out affair. If it's Love, I still wouldn't expect the Packers to just blow out the Titans. So it's going to be a hungry Tennessee team, knowing that sort of the fate of their season could pivot one way or another with this game. Because I truly believe 1-2 is just so much different in the NFL compared to 0-3. And so we'll see how things pan out. I do, like I said, though, it's a very, very winnable game regardless for Green Bay. So we'll see how the chips fall. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Mitch, I am on YouTube. Always, 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 always appreciate all the support. We'll see you next time.